So I have taught what we call one-shot information literacy or library instruction classes in Deborah Sanders' business management courses. I'm also working on a multi-semester research project which studies the flipped classroom in business management courses, and we're trying to determine which learning method is better, flipped versus lecture. And I'm not really going to speak too much about that study, but Deborah Sanders' courses were part of it. So briefly, what is the flipped classroom? Generally speaking, it involves pre-class work or homework, which are the lower levels of cognitive work, something that students could learn on their own. Then active learning in class, where there's application of the knowledge that the students acquired doing the homework, with support from the instructor and peers. And then after class, there would be more practice and learning. In our case, you will see that we added a follow-up class. So why did we choose the flipped classroom for these business courses? I particularly have some background in business research, and Deborah Sanders, in her business management course, gives a case study project for groups, and active learning is a very good way to get the students to learn the basics of research involving using particular databases, which are library databases. So the other things that feed into this, Flipped does support independent learning, and students, have developed some kind of vested interest in learning, and some of that is due to incentivizing them through a homework assignment that's graded or a project that they're working on. There is opportunity for much more communication between the instructor and the student, hopefully in an environment that's productive as far as questions and answers and supporting individual learning. And the use of video, which is not essential to the flip, but very commonly used, we did use it. We feel it coincides a lot with student habits in terms of the way students use information, use the internet. So it's a help. So let's look at this course that we worked with in terms of the flipped. The course requires groups to learn about management through researching a specific company. So already, Deborah Sanders, even before she had information literacy in terms of a lecture, she was giving students a project to analyze the company management of particular companies in groups. And the project is a semester-long project, and actually involves specific learning objectives, two of which, or three of which, are to gain proficiency in using library databases to collect relevant journal articles. The second one is to profile the target company and the industry in terms of certain criteria and information, and then to characterize the target company's business environment. Now, all three of these, and there are more learning objectives actually in the project, all three require business research skills and understanding of certain concepts. So the methodology for the flipped classes generally speaking, in all the semesters that we worked on this, but particularly in just this recent semester, we had an experimental, a flipped, and a control group, a lecture. Both of them were taught by Deborah Sanders, same course level, 2 sections of the same course. So that really fed into my research in terms of comparing the flipped and the control. But for both classes, what we did in terms of research methodology for assessment purposes on the flipped, we gave each group a pretest, assessing their knowledge of the subject matter to be taught, and then the experimental group had a video and a worksheet assignment, and then both groups got a post-test. So the pre and post-test were for assessment purposes in the research project. So let's look at an actual lesson, and I'll walk you through the steps of what we did and what you could do. This may be familiar already to you, but I just want to suggest that the success of the flipped class really depends a lot on planning it and thinking about what you want the students to accomplish, because your activities, your homework assignment need to be carefully structured in terms of the learning outcomes that you want, and then developing learning modules that will assist that. So start out with the learning objectives. You have them on your syllabus. Think about them, and for particular chunks of material, you don't have to flip the entire course. You don't have to flip every lesson. You can flip 1 or 2, or several. It really depends on what you're doing. But think about, say, a particular unit of material that the students need to learn. What is it that you could give them as an assignment, homework assignment, and then in-class activities that follow it? And think of the skills that could be paired in that way, skills or concepts. And then homework. What I'm saying is, think about the building blocks that would be needed for learning a particular unit. So what is it that the students could learn on their own, at home, watching a video, assuming a video is being used? You don't have to use a video. You could use a reading assignment, and you could have the students interact with that reading on the computer, answering questions. So you could give a quiz online. You could give a reading assignment and a quiz and have that be embedded in Blackboard or whatever you're using. So you can do that with a chunk of homework and have students come in prepared to do an active learning session. I have to mention incentives. It is really important, if you're giving students homework that you really need them to do before coming in to an activity, you've got to incentivize them with a grade or some extra credit possibly, but I think a grade works, where they could submit it to Blackboard and then you grade it, and it's part of their grade. However you want to do that. It could be part of their participation grade. It's on some level, you have to make sure that if they don't do it, there is some penalty, because otherwise it may seem like it's just something not really required. And you do need them to know a certain amount before they come into class. Okay, so the business class, I was teaching the library instruction, and I did create a video, which I'll show a minute of, and then there were learning objectives that I had for the homework. I just wanted the students to know two things after they did the homework assignment. They should know if a company is public or private, how to find that out. Where do they look? What do they do? Students will be able to find data on a company. How can they do that? So let me show you. This is the assignment which I gave them on a website. I gave them the link. They would complete the assignment. And here is the video. I just want to show you. This is a video that we created in the library. We created it ourselves. You don't necessarily have to create videos on your own, but we did. You're not hearing it. How are we doing here? Well, I don't hear any sound. Okay, this video would take a student through a certain database and show them. It's okay, I won't have time. So the video would show them how to use a certain database called LexisNexis Company Dossier. It would walk them through it. Now I'm hearing sound. Okay, maybe we could. How do we turn the sound off? Sorry. And then the students would, thank you. Yep. Students would fill out this worksheet on the company that they're working on for their group project. And this would mean they would use the LexisNexis database that they just watched a video about and fill in all this information about the company, okay? And this is a Word doc, which is on a website, and they can fill it in and upload the Word doc to Blackboard. And then I took a look at their submissions before the class, so I could see some gaps. Oh, they didn't know how to answer such and such a question. I mean, it could be that one or two students had a problem with certain questions on that worksheet. So I was prepared before the active learning class to address those problems, okay? So now the in-class activity, again, I thought about, well, what do I want them to do? In the beginning, when I started teaching this way with the flipped, I had 3 activities in a 1-hour class. Turned out to be too much. So I picked the more difficult databases. One of them, Business Source Complete. The other one, to do this, they need to know a certain database called Business Insights Essentials. Both of these are library databases. So those are the activities, and there were not videos, but a little bit of lecture from me first, and then I let the students dive into that database. Each student has a computer in our library classrooms. So the students were seated with the group that they were working on their homework, their group project, their course long, semester long term paper project. So they would be seated with that group, work together, and that's important, on learning that one or those 2 databases with the guided worksheets that I gave them. So what I did was, after doing this for 1 or 2 semesters and running out of time, I divided this and I gave the 2 easier databases, Wall Street Journal and Learning About 10Ks, I gave that as homework. Now here would be an example. I would tell the students to go into a database in their group. They could work together and fill out this information. They would then start to figure out how are they going to find this and start to ask questions. And that's where you really have to be nimble. You walk around, you look over their shoulders, you try to get them engaged. And I have to say, using the computer and giving them a focus really gets students engaged and not busy texting or thinking about something else. There are a lot of questions, though, that come up. Sometimes it's you have to give them a little bit of time, I did anyway, to absorb what you've said and then try it on their own. And they have to be willing to, be open about what they don't know. The follow-up session, which we initiated almost as soon as we started this, was excellent. And Deborah Sanders made sure that she revised her syllabus to include a follow-up session with me in the library, and students would come in. It was a required session. Students would come in, sit in their groups, and work together on their group project. And this is, we believe, is where real learning occurred. I did give homework ahead of time, and now if I do this again, I would incentivize that homework, because I found that homework was not generally done. But I would incentivize them that. I would have them submit it. And what we were able to do was give them a research guide, which the library creates, to support them in learning a lot of these databases. So, for instance, here are the databases that are necessary for their group project, and here are video tutorials about each and every database. So this is something that's available to them 24/7. We gave them the pre and post tests. I think I've mentioned most of this about incentivizing with Blackboard. That was a change that we made in the spring. We hadn't done that before. It's very, very useful to put the pre-assignment, to have it posted in Blackboard, graded, and then we also gave homework for the follow-up class, and I believe we will incentivize that and grade it as well. So what have we learned? You don't have to use advanced technologies, but there are a lot of technologies that are simple, that can be used to create your own videos or insert questions or comments into other people's videos. For instance, incentivizing and giving assignments with online quizzes has worked successfully for Deborah. She, in addition to this class, would assign readings and then have an online quiz in Blackboard that was required, and she felt it was good. So all of my slides will be available, so you can view them. The positive reaction of students is significant. A survey was given out, and the copy of the survey you can see on my slides, and I'm going to give you a handout with links that you can refer to. But this survey was just to find out, it wasn't part of the research project, just to find out what the students thought about the flipped classroom. And on a scale of 1 to 7, 70% of the students said they liked the flipped at number 5 on the scale of 1 to 7, which is pretty good. And there were useful comments about what could be done and what is best. And then I'll just show you this comment from Professor Sanders, who's taught this class for a long time. She said, I can say with great confidence that the overall quality of the reports, meaning the term papers, have improved dramatically. As a result, I've been able to hold students to a higher standard. So there's lots of technology, as I said. All of this is available on a website, and I have a handout that I'll pass along to you. So quickly, I think maybe we have time for one or two questions, if anyone has. Yes?
On the survey that you had,
Yes.
it was about 70% rating there.
Right.
Is there any correlation between the students that you felt were technology literate versus not?
I'd have to ask Deborah Sanders. I don't think she, she didn't do that in a formal way. It would just be her knowledge of the students. If their name was on the survey, which I believe in her class, yes, I think she did have their name. So I can't answer that for sure. But if you're trying to get at the concern that students who are not computer literate or may not have access to technology, or information literate.
I mean, that's the title of your...
Right. Well, that's what we're teaching. Yeah, it was on this information, this particular class. So they usually don't come in information literate. You mean in general information literate, or in terms of business?
Well, those students that might be challenged with computers or gaining information literacy through computers.
Through computers, yeah.
I'm just trying to see if there's a correlation between whether they like the course or didn't like the course.
Uh-huh.
Did the technology get in the way, or
I
was the
see.
system?
I see. I don't think...
I saw one comment that said, we like working in groups, but it didn't have anything to do with technology or flipped. And even Professor Sanders' comments said that the classes or the papers were better, but it had nothing to do with flipped. There was nothing in the comment that had anything to do with flipped. So I'm trying to find where the flip fits into the whole.
Well, her comment that the papers were better meant that the students had gained the knowledge they needed, and she attributed that to the library instruction, the information literacy instruction. It happens to be done in flipped, but yeah, she attributed it to these flipped classes. So, but there is a question doing this in terms of students who may not have access to technology, and there are ways of compensating for that. For instance, I've seen referenced in articles that if a student can't watch the video because they don't have a computer or they don't have that bandwidth, so you might give them, a thumb drive, and if they can find a computer somewhere, they can watch it. So, or you can put stuff on DVD and have those DVD discs, and they can go and put it on a DVD player. So those are just two suggestions. It depends on how critical. I have PowerPoint of the videos, so if a student for some reason can't use the videos, they can use the PowerPoint, the same content. So, I think the technology that we were using was pretty basic. It was Blackboard, it was, the internet. Blackboard, the internet, library databases, all that, which, where everything that we assigned would be available in the library. So if a student didn't have it at home, could use it in the library. But I'm not sure we were measuring that. Let's see. So, anything else? All right, that's it.
Thank you.
So, out of here.